HOA Karen kept plugging Tesla into my solar grid, so I set the voltage to maximum and watched her regret it. I'm an electrical engineer who spent about $27,000 in 2 summers building the off-grid solar rig of my dreams. Every panel, battery stack, and controller, I sized and wired myself. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about being untethered from the grid. Then Doris found my outdoor charger. Doris was the HOA's self-appointed standards director. She'd volunteered for treasurer and treated it like a coronation, delighting in fines, misaligned flower pots, stray bins, kids' chalk. When I installed panels, she complained about visual disharmony. I showed her city permits and explained the system was private and legal. She didn't accept that. The first clue something was wrong was an inverter alert late one night. Outside, her immaculate white EV, a Volt X SUV she'd bought to broadcast her eco-virtue, was plugged into the small charging port on my porch. She stood there with hands on hips like it was a public right. "Your charger wasn't in use last night," she said. "You can't use someone else's private power," I replied. "We're one community," she said. "It benefits the neighborhood." I told her the HOA had no claim on my system. She shrugged and left. Back inside, I pulled logs. The car had grabbed nearly a full charge overnight, dozens of dollars worth, and it wasn't the first time. Timestamps showed she'd been sneaking over for top-ups when she thought I wasn't looking. The next day, I knocked with printouts, energy logs, timestamps, and porch camera clips. I offered a simple resolution: stop and reimburse a fair portion. She laughed and shut the door. A week later, she filed an HOA complaint accusing me of energy exclusionism, claiming board members had access to communal infrastructure. It was petty and wrong. I could have sued, but first I built a non-destructive deterrent, a fake connector that looked identical to the real port but refused a connection, flashed lights, and announced unauthorized use. The aim was humiliation, not harm. I posted a bright, private grid, "Do not use" sign, expecting Doris to treat it as a challenge. Saturday at 11:43 p.m., my monitor blinked. There she was in sweatpants, humming as she tucked the connector into the decoy. 10 seconds later, the sign blinked. A voice intoned, "Unauthorized charging, owner notified," and a spotlight snapped on. Doris yelped, yanked the cable, and stumbled onto her lawn. My cameras caught it. I replayed the clip and grinned. Deterrent sometimes needs theater. Morning brought an indignant knock. Doris arrived flanked by 2 board members who looked like they'd rather be elsewhere. Her EV sat behind her, the charging cable limp. "You tampered with my car," she screeched. "Tampered?" I said, and invited them in. I laid out the evidence. Weeks of footage, precise energy logs, and a record of the nights her vehicle drained power. I explained the deterrent was non-destructive and intended only to stop theft. The board members exchanged glances. Leonard, the sandal and socks regular, shuffled forward. "We just want this settled," he said. When Doris realized the story would be told by data and video rather than gossip, she looked suddenly small. Without assumed authority, she lacked a comeback. In the end, the board admonished her for misusing private property and dragging the HOA into a civil matter. She grumbled about community spirit while agreeing under pressure to reimburse the energy. I'd logged hundreds of weekend hours learning wiring diagrams and testing battery packs. I still get a quiet thrill when the inverter reports a stable output. Designing the decoy followed that same methodical mindset: make it obvious and harmless. I programmed a brief escalation, chime, recorded announcement, then spotlight and flashing LEDs, enough to startle and shame without damage. Afterward, I emailed footage and logs to the HOA secretary and copied the municipal office to create a clear paper trail. Neighbors who had once tolerated Doris's complaints began seeing her differently when timestamps and video circulated. A few asked me about panels and permits. I answered them patiently. The board admonished her, she agreed under pressure to reimburse the energy, and my setup remained private. I kept the decoy a few more nights to be sure the point stuck, then removed it. The panels hummed on, my independence intact. I had a cleaner way to solve problems without matching pettiness with pettiness.